Rest all panelists, I think I must, on behalf of Prism Johnson Limited and on behalf of the entire building material industry as a representative of the industry, I must extend my warm welcomes to you. And I hope that in these testing times of pandemic, we are all staying safe. The families, the colleagues, the people we care about, they have been safe. My best wishes to all of you, and we must take precautions. I don't need to say much about this because obviously most of the names over here, they are very eminent and they specialize into the field of public healthcare and medical facilities. On this note, I think we will just wait for 2 minutes for the official time of the webinar. And we are already live, so we are streaming on Facebook, and slowly, gradually, the participants are building up also in Zoom. So in the next 2 to 3 minutes, we will be formally initiating the discussion.
I think one thing which I talked to you earlier, Mr. Upadhyay, I think on phone, uh, uh, as the thing that the pandemic is going on and we are talking something about post-pandemic healthcare design, I just mentioned that this is, I mean, we can say this is a beginning of a series of meetings because it's a bit too early to arrive certain solutions in healthcare based on this pandemic. I just mentioned this thing to Mr. Upadhyay. I think I talked to you.
No, no,
Just this,
absolutely. And I
just small
agree
note
to that.
for this,
I
because we are
absolutely
still
agree.
working. We are just thinking on this thing, how to move about, how to rearrange facilities. So a bit we can start on, but we need to have other meeting also in this chain, so that we can have some good solutions post COVID or post pandemic architecture, we can say, in healthcare.
Absolutely. In fact, health and education are two such areas where I think most of the learnings and takeaways are required, where a lot of application of thought process and a lot of deliberation to reach some conclusions is required. And you rightly mentioned that day also and today also that it's a very sort of fluid stage and a very dynamic situation right now also. So I remember conducting a couple of large-scale webinars last time also. Architect Ashok Kumar was one of my panelists also in one of those events. So at that time also we were trying to deliberate and we were talking about topics like reboot and refresh after the lockdown 1.0, and we were all expecting that possibly we have got a hang of things. And then we suddenly realized that no, that's not the case. Possibly when we got hit hard by wave 2, that is when this realization started to settle down, that possibly we are still evolving, still learning, and this is far from over. So the deliberation which were done with the ground realities at that point of time, possibly some of it does not hold true at this time because the ground itself has changed. We were talking about droplet based infection, then suddenly that infection turned into surface contamination also, and then suddenly it has now become aerosol driven, and now we are talking about even this infection can spread through air also. God knows tomorrow what more learnings could come in. So it's a very fluid stage. And yes, what we can do as a resilient race is keep learning every day, keep evolving every day, and keep taking some takeaways from our own deliberations to at least put things into work in progress mode. So a series of such consultations where diverse background people, experts from various industries, sectors coming in together regularly deliberating on certain topics and thinking about designing and building a better tomorrow. That is the intent with which this series has been launched. And I'm sure, at least on the industry part, that industry will keep on coming up with and the continuity of these series. And the intent is always to have at least a few conclusive, actionable points on which we all can collaborate and work together. Otherwise, just discussing and uh, assimilating views is not taking us anywhere. So that has been the intent. Rajiv, thank you so much for once again putting that point forward. And since it is already time, so let me formally extend a warm welcome to all the panelists and all the viewers who are connected to us on Zoom, as well as those who are watching us live on Facebook. This particular series, which has been launched by Prism Johnson, is to explore in a sector specific manner. Sectors like education and healthcare are right now at the prime focus. So the idea is to sort of exploring where we stand today, what are the realities, how things have changed, what are the new priorities emerging out of our learnings, which we are learning every day, and how do we implement it? How do we put it into actionable sort of a mold where something concrete can be worked upon? So the pandemic, and especially the second wave, which has been raging for a few months in India now, it has been an eye opener for all of us. It has shown us how vulnerable we are. It has shown us the gaps which have been there. Not that these gaps are only limited to a country like India. We are a 1.3 billion population, and we have our own specific challenges which may be different from the world. But it's not as if the rest of the world was not hit bad. So without getting into that mode, I would say there have been lot of learnings if I look at whatever happened. And since this time, the experience have been up and close to each of us, because someone very close, or possibly we ourselves, or someone whom we knew very well got infected, unfortunate mishaps happening here and there. So things have been obviously not very well, and we need to now look back at whatever were the gaps, and we need to now take account of how to move forward and what all learnings we need to sort of filter out and put into actionable mode. So with that, this series has been launched, and today's topic, healthcare spaces in India, necessity to innovate in public sector. For that, we have invited a very diverse panel with some very eminent names, ranging from the medical administrators, academicians, to designers and people from design fraternity who have been designing public medical infrastructure for a very long time. Then we have a few representatives from the public services side and government side also, who are again involved into infrastructure development and design, to give us a perspective of like what Rajiv just mentioned, that things are very fluid. We are still learning. Possibly it is too early. Yes. So that itself is a perspective for us. And that needs to be noted. And we need to then see that how we sort of take this forward and ensure that our engagement and communication is continuous, so that we give some shape to our discussions going forward. So for that, we have a few eminent guests from the government sector also. Then we are also trying to bring in the industry representation in form of Mr. Sudipta Saha. So Mr. Saha will be obviously bringing in the perspective of how industry can also pitch in to bring in some solutions. Even today, when the pandemic is raging everywhere and we are finding solutions, it is only the collaboration between the medical fraternity, the biotechnology sector, and the corporate sector, people like Serum, who are finally coming together, collaborating to create a safe future for us. So that is the need of the hour. Let me not waste any more time and take you through the profile of our eminent guests. Uh, the first panelist with us is Dr. Kailash Sharma. Dr. Sharma is one of the most eminent names in the medical fraternity. He is the Dean Projects for Tata Memorial Hospitals, Mumbai. He has been associated with Tata Hospitals since 1984, and currently he is overseeing the design, development, and all the infrastructure part of the 14 cancer hospitals under the TMH umbrella across India. Uh, he is a very eminent name in anesthesiologists. He is a highly respected name when it comes to the medical practitioners also. And it is our true privilege and an honor to have him on this panel to share his views. And we are looking forward to the insights that he will bring in to this overall discussion. Going forward, I have with us architect Shalina Menon. She is associated right now with Shapurji Palunji Company Limited in their design and build segment as a project manager and a healthcare specialist. She brings in more than 18 years of strong domain experience into design and planning of healthcare spaces. Uh, Across her career, she has been sort of the go-to resource when it comes to the healthcare planning and anything and everything related to healthcare design. She, in her earlier stints, was also associated with Apollo Hospitals in the field of architecture and planning and worked closely in design and development of multiple medical facilities for Apollo Group. Prior to that, she was also associated with RSP Design Consultants, a very prominent name in the field of architecture and design. And there also, she was working closely with clients like Walcott and Columbia Asia as her clients in terms of design, planning, and development of their medical infrastructure. I welcome Shalina on the panel, and I would like to extend my best wishes to her as my co-panelist. We also have architect Rajiv Kanojiya with us. Uh, Architect Rajiv Kanojiya is working as senior architect with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. He looks after a lot of central funded projects and schemes across India, along with other healthcare projects pertaining to international and other government segments. He has been actively involved in upgrading of multiple All India Institute of Medical Sciences and other medical colleges under Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Suraksha Yojana. He was also instrumental in upgradation of district hospitals into medical colleges across various states. He was also there in multiple international health facilities development projects like quarantine facilities at airports, ports, and then into EMR, NCDC, and CGHS. Uh, a very experienced name when it comes to healthcare design. And he is obviously gracing this panel to add his own views on how we should be looking at this entire situation. I have, as my fellow panelist, also architect Ashok Kumar. Uh, 37 years of practice speaks itself volumes about the kind of work Mr. Architect Ashok Kumar has done. Through his firm, where he is principal and founder, Arcan Design, He has been involved into multiple mid and large scale projects in medical infrastructure, both at private and public sector levels. Currently also, there are multiple medical infrastructure projects where his designs are now getting into execution mode, including a lot of medical colleges which are coming up in UP, where PWD is involved. And it is already an established fact that when it comes to healthcare design, architect Ashok Kumar is sort of one of the most reputed names, without any doubt. I extend my warm welcome to architect
फिर
Ashok Kumar.
प्रॉब्लम
Next on the panel with us is architect Dinesh Sharma. Mr. Sharma is the chief architect employed with RSRDC, Government of Rajasthan. He is a graduate from Chandigarh College of Architecture and based out of Jaipur. Architect Dinesh Sharma has been instrumental in design and development of multiple government and public sector buildings in the state of Rajasthan. As a consultant, he has also been involved into design and development and execution of multiple medical facilities also, including in the recent past MCH units of 100 bed in Dausa, Baran, Dholpur and Sawai Madhopur, to name a few. He again brings in an active experience of, in fact, I was interacting with him yesterday only. So he told me that he has also been actively involved into converting a few educational facilities into a short-term to mid-term COVID care facility. So he has hands-on experience of and expertise of scaling up and developing that kind of temporary structures also. So that is another area of expertise that he brings to the panel. And this panel, I'm sure today, with the opening of dialogue, would be deliberating, discussing, and bringing to the fore some conclusions, some actionable inputs with which we can move forward together as industry, academia, practitioners, designers, to build a safer, more sufficient, and adequately equipped future as far as the public health infrastructure is concerned. I'm opening now the panel discussion by posing my first question to Dr. Sharma from Tata Medical. Sir, a lot of things have been already said, discussed in media, in different forums, different panels about what the medical infrastructure could be after the learnings of this kind of a pandemic. We have not seen it in almost a century, this kind of unprecedented situation. And as a layman coming from, say, a commercial segment, possibly my own understanding could be very, very limited. So I come to you as a subject matter expert and would like to understand from you how you see the medical infrastructure shaping up from here, which direction it would take. Are the priorities as far as the medical fraternity is concerned in terms of space design in the public sector, are the priorities shifting? Is there some shift in the terms of the checklists which were there when designing a public sector or a large hospital facility? Is there a change? And if yes, then what are those new additions or new priorities which you see that will take prominence in the years to come? Dr. Sharma.
Yes. Uh, am I audible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, good evening, all the eminent panelists, my friends. So, Gupta Saha from Prism Johnson. And at the outset, I'm very happy and thankful to all the organizers that they called me to attend this uh, panel meeting and to contribute myself whatever I have learned in opening up of all the hospitals and with the new context of the pandemic scene. So now in this pandemic, we have learned that the old okay. So I'm into last say 36, 37 years into cancer care, and my journey started at Tata Memorial Center, Mumbai, when it was a small hospital with say 5 operation theaters and say 100 beds. Now it has grown to around 32 operation theaters, more than 1,000 beds, and all over India. Now we are expanding, and we are putting now distributed cancer care model by opening up good cancer care facilities across India, like 2 in Varanasi, 2 in Punjab, 1 in Visakhapatnam, Guwahati, and all these hospitals. So while designing, we need a lot of inputs from the eminent panelists like you, where the architectural plan, the space design, then the stacking plan, and as far as possible, the infection control is very much important. And I hope that while designing operation theaters and ward, the entire structure of the wall tiles, the toilet tiles, and the floor tiles, which are of very, very importance, and the old phenomena has old thinking, which was there, that there were only few mosaic tiles and all these things, which were very difficult to clean, difficult to disinfect, and there were so many crevices, so that the infection was there and it got harbored. But nowadays, with the spotless production of all these things, the tiles which are very big, and when you put it on the floor, there are very less and less crevices, and the design of wall tiles also, which I have seen, that when particularly the modular operation theaters are being planned, they are in such a way that it is very easy to clean, easy to disinfect, easy to fumigate, and when you send the culture of from the theater, you find that theaters are absolutely clean and there is no infection which is happening to the major surgeries, where it is very important. Second thing is the sterile corridor of the operation theater, right from the central sterile supply department to operation theater and the waiting area outside. That is number one. Second thing, sterile corridor, I mean that theater connection to the post-op care unit and the ICU. So all these things, the conglomerate of the entire hospital, which say it's a heart to the hospital, that post-op care, ICU, and the operation theaters, they part the integral part of any of the hospital, whether it's 100 bedded, whether it's 200, 1,000 bed, or whatever is the capacity, the number of operation theaters, the number of proportionate bed you need in this thing. And recently in pandemic, we have realized that ICU beds are most important beds, and which were lacking in as compared to the other beds which were converted into COVID facility or COVID ward, with oxygen facilities, with ventilator facilities, and this thing. So whenever such facilities are being constructed, the main important thing is the secondary infection, and everything is say nick and pick. But when secondary infection happens, I think you lose the case. You spend lakhs of rupees on antibiotics and nothing happens, and infection still remains. So while designing these hospitals, I would rather, I am illiterate in this matter, though I have so many years of experience, but when the eminent architects are there, when the designers are there, I find myself that I'm illiterate. I would like to learn more and more from the panelists. What are their views on the design of, say, OTs, design of hospitals, stacking plan, how they want flooring, the new design development of the tiles, which can be infection free, and the surface is so clean that whenever you wash, whenever you swipe, or whenever you disinfect, it remains infection free, because there are less number of crevices, less number of spaces in between the tile where the permanent infection gets harbored. So this is my view, and I would like to enlighten myself. And as and when the other panelists progress, I would like to gain something from them. And as and when somebody speaks, I would try to contribute myself. So this was my view, and this thing that I will have some idea from there. As we are designing so many hospitals in Assam, I'm working with Tata Trust, also House of Tatas, where we are putting up small and large hospitals in Assam, the entire Assam, then Chandrapur, Tirupati, Ranchi. So this is a distributed type of cancer care model where, say, 10 years before, patients from all over India used to come to only Tata Hospital. It is very difficult for the patients from UP, MP, Jharkhand, or from Assam to come to Mumbai to live. Mumbai is expensive. There are no space to live for the patient and relatives. And the burden which happens at Tata Hospital, we really, with the old building and all these things, we can't keep ourselves infection free. That's why when we are designing now new hospitals in our Kharghar campus and the campus which is in front of the old Tata Hospital, Parel, that is an Hafkin campus, where we will be having the new design of the hospital. And while I will get some information from the eminent panelists, and I will try to get involved them also in putting up their views when we design these hospitals for the entire hospital planning, stacking, wall, flooring, toilets, bathrooms, everything, so that it should be comfortable, it should look nice, it should look elegant, and at the most important is that it should be infection free. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I think that was very insightful and will be very helpful as a food for thought for all the people here from the design fraternity especially. Let me now quickly go to architect Ashok Kumar. Ashok ji, you have been involved big time into design and development of medical facilities, especially public sector. I've seen your work and the kind of involvement you have and the detailing that you do. Your thoughts on this, sir? How the priorities, as a designer, how you see it? What priorities seem to be changing by this pandemic, by virtue of whatever is going on? Like right now, Dr. Sharma also mentioned a very important part, that was secondary infections. So like we have been reading, I'm medically illiterate, but I will still say possibly I'm spelling it right. Mucormycosis is one such fungal disease, which Dr. Sharma, please feel free to correct me. What I understand, this is another secondary infection, post-COVID complication, which possibly may also happen because of surfaces which are
Yes,
contaminated and all.
yes.
So, a lot of learnings going forward. Architect Ashok Kumar, the question is to you, sir. How do you see things shaping up from here?
Thank you, Rajiv. Good evening, all the panelists, eminent panelists, and also all the audience that we have today. It's really a pleasure and a privilege being part of this important discussion today. And I'm sure with the collective wisdom that we wish to gain today, and maybe that becomes a kind of tool to use in our future strategies towards making a good healthcare infrastructure for all times. So that was just a kind of a thank you note for all concerned. Now, coming to the question as such, rightly said and discussed by Dr. Sharma also, that the infection control is a very, very vital issue, because more so in case of public healthcare infrastructure, as you know, when we talk of, I mean, there are two very distinct kind of, architectures, especially one for the corporate sector and the private sector, which is rather, slightly different in terms of that becomes a high end, that becomes a centrally air condition always. So, and then the kind of user we normally encounter there, they're different. And they are somewhat, in the upper segment of society that they belong to. Whereas when we talk of public healthcare infrastructure, especially the government hospitals and medical colleges where we have teaching hospitals and the general hospitals. Now, these are the places where, people from different strata of the society, they really come over. And it's not always the case that you can have a building which is 100% air conditioned. And therefore, here the challenge becomes a little more, crucial and critical in terms of trying to ensure that the whole building or the whole complex of hospital remains infection free or largely infection controlled, I would say. So there, the strategy becomes pretty much crucial and important in the sense that the patient flow, the attendant flow, and the patient and the attendant, that's the kind of crowd we expect and we normally have. So the movement of this stream should be very organized and very defined, I would say. So especially in a healthcare project, we have three major components. One is the OPD, second is the IPD, and third is the critical care, like all these, operation theaters, ICUs, and then whatever different labs are there, and then emergency, triage, and everything. So that becomes a critical care component. So what happens? The OPD is operational only for a certain number of hours, say 4, 5, 6 hours maximum, right from the morning till noon or afternoon. However, other activities, they remain 24/7. So in that case, it's very much desirable to have OPD plan in such a way that when the OPD is on and active, that particular crowd does not really, unnecessarily disturb the other activities. And therefore that isolation or that kind of seclusion in the planning is very essentially called for. Whether it's a different building or it's a different, block altogether, or a part of the building, but somehow organized in such a way that the stream of movement does not really disturb the other activities which are critical and more sensitive. So that's one. Second, when we plan the IPD and critical care, there again, we have all these people coming in close contact. For instance, so emergency. Anybody comes with maybe 2 or 3 attendants and people along, and so in any case the public interface is there with the doctors and with staff, so who are equally vulnerable to being exposed to these kind of situations. And therefore there again, what are most traffic centric activities should be placed on the lower floors or should be placed in the external situations, so that people unnecessarily don't really move into certain areas which are, sensitive areas, I would say, and maybe a little bit forbidden for public movement in general at large. So that should be the strategy, and that should be the planning strategy, which can ensure that the stream of movement of public or patient and attendant at large should be very, very restrictive in that sense. And then comes a IPD. There again, IPD, you have mostly all the people or the patients who are, maybe operated upon, maybe having given consultation and maybe then admitted, and then they are into the IPD. So obviously, there the patients, once they are in IPD, they are largely there for a couple of days or whatever time they are there. But then there is a practice of, somebody coming to see a patient. So, like in public hospitals of these kinds, if there is one patient, then there are maybe a couple of attendants and visitors coming to see that person. So, unlike the corporates where you have a very strict protocol to follow, that people are not allowed to come to the patient's bed. We need to maintain that protocol and that kind of discipline in the government hospitals as well, which has not been very prevalent and very much in practice. Now, of course, in the newer hospitals and newer situations, these things are getting improved. So I'm sure once we have a certain amount of discipline, the protocol in place, these things can be definitely controlled. That is about the behavioral part of it. Coming to the finishes part of it, as Dr. Sharma also mentioned, that we have a lot of areas where the corridor, especially, these areas where we normally have different options of finishes, which are more, popular, I would say. For instance, in the corridor and all sensitive healthcare areas, we have been using vinyl flooring. That is on the very sensitive areas. But then larger public healthcare infrastructure, such as hospitals and medical colleges, most of the corridors we normally have the ceramic tiles, or you can say these, sorry, not the ceramic tiles. Now these tiles have been upgraded to vitrified tiles. And in the vitrified segment also, we have been very commonly using this ultra slim kind of tile, because wall finish, if you have the tiles dado, say let's say about 1.5 meters high or something, or even more. Sometimes we have been going for 2.1 meters, that is 7 feet up to the door lintel height. So that entire corridor is having kind of a finish which is absolutely free from any joints and things like that. So when using good size tile, say anything like 6 by 600 or even bigger, and that too ultra slim, so that the protrusion on the wall surface by means of a thickness of a mortar and thing is least, and also the thickness of plaster is also contained. So all these kind of strategies are now being adopted to maintain the infectious control or infection control to the minimum, or as much as possible towards the lowest this thing. So these are certain things which we have been very consciously using it. So that was about it. And then lastly, we also see that the planning is one thing which always gives a chance to factor in these issues. So when space permits, we go for these activities in a manner that we can definitely have separate blocks, or as far as possible, they are identifiably different. But in case the space is a constraint and we don't have much space to have different blocks for all these things, then we can definitely have an arrangement and with the principle of having a most traffic-centric areas in the lower floors. And as we go up, the kind of functions we have in the upper floors, they require least traffic. And that is how in most of the cases, if the building height is not more than 30 meters, we've been trying to have operation theaters on the top floor. And the normal stack diagram we start with, we have a top floor for operation theater, then down below we have ICUs, and of course, along with the operation theaters, we have pre and post-operative ward, and then ICUs, then CSSDs nearby. And then, of course, all the critical functions, including labs and other things. Then we have the ground floor, largely for two major things. One, the emergency, and second is for all these radio diagnosis and things of a diagnostic kinds. So this is our general take on the very broad parameters of planning aspect. I think you've tried
Thank
to
you so
cover
much.
most.
I think
Yeah.
very, very, very insightful inputs. And that takes me to the next set of questions, which I have been sort of contemplating to ask. And I will go to architect Dinesh Sharma ji. Dinesh ji, during this pandemic, there was a talk going on, which was more to do with managing patients which were having this infectious disease vis-a-vis the patients which were non-COVID. And then we learned that some hospitals were completely converted into a COVID care facilities. Then there was talk about how to manage the non-COVID patients who also need care, the surgeries which are not pertaining to COVID. So then at a lot of places, I have been interacting to consultants and designers, and discussions have been revolving around how to have that flexibility in the design of, say, public healthcare buildings, that tomorrow, if any such infectious disease comes in, uh, an isolation ward only for the particular infectious disease vis-a-vis keeping the rest of the building aside for managing the other sort of patients. So how to create those facilities where this kind of flexibility is there, that you just possibly bring in one sort of a partition or a modular system, or what kind of flexibility we have been talking about. So this, the kind of scale and the kind of time period which has elapsed with this pandemic, how do you see it shaping up now? Is there a need now to sort of design more flexible ideas and more flexible kind of spaces which can be quickly turned from, like the best example that comes to my mind is there in the conference rooms and auditoriums, that they have got those partitions which they open, it becomes a bigger hall, and then they put those partitions and convert it into 3 small meeting rooms, and then again they can mix and match and do a lot of things with design. Yes. So to a layman, possibly that is the most simplest idea. But as a designer, and that too from the policy making side, how do you see it, sir? How things will shape up from here?
Right. Hello. Yeah.
Ji, Dinesh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was talking. First, I will answer one question of Mr. Ashok Kumar. That he was telling that in the government buildings, it's difficult to design because there are some aspects are different for public building and for the government hospitals and private hospitals. Because the user of government hospital are 80% of the population. They are catering to 80% of the population, and mostly the people come to the government hospital are from rural background, and they are not acquainted with this air-conditioned background. So most of the time what happens that when they are going to this air-conditioned environment, they are not even they get they get hyper from these things. So in my view, in government buildings, we should have some open spaces which have natural ventilation. Because right now in most of the hospitals, what we are providing is air conditioning system to all our the hospital. Now I come to the point what you are saying, that for these things, what we can have open spaces with soft these things, partitions. For total OPD blocks can be designed in such a way that can be remodeled when required in case of pandemic. Or open spaces, whatever open spaces are there in the ground or in the hospital campus, that can be converted, and hospital this ward can be built on these areas. The same thing we have done, which were Mr. Upadhyay was telling. That is a school building in Dariba. It's a nearby place, mining area near Udaipur district. So Udaipur hospital was full for the COVID patients. So RSRDC from the corporation side, they have developed the school building and converted it into COVID facility. So that the whole of the Dariba was catered by these facilities. So these are things we can use for these things.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the inputs. Now, let me quickly go to architect Shalina Menon. Shalina, you have been listening to all the views of our panelists and a couple of questions which have been posed. What's your take? How do you see things shaping up? Especially you guys have always been involved in the thick of the action, and I know that right now also a lot of medical facilities are being sort of executed and designed at the end of Shapurji. So how do you see things taking shape from here?
Hi, Harsh. Thanks a lot for having me in, and good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, everybody. It's a privilege to be speaking on this panel. Harsh, to this is the first thing, the topic of our webinar, that is the innovations on public healthcare. The first innovation, in my personal view, is we could have is how to jointly venture with the private healthcare. Really, that's what I have been, sitting and thinking in all this while, that this pandemic, one thing that this pandemic has taught us is forget about public healthcare. What is private healthcare? Everybody is going everywhere. There are tests that are being done only in government. There are tests that have beds which were only in private. Oxygen cylinders are only in the private, or some are only in the public. And there's a chaos. There's clearly such a huge chaos, and we are all reacting to a situation rather than finding a solution. It was good to know the basics of healthcare design and plan by the architects, and it was good to have insights from Dr. From the Tata Memorial Group. But frankly, you go to the web, you go online, you have WHO, who has published serious literature on how to design hospitals for a pandemic, how to design hospital for a infectious block. It is a unidirectional flow, and a non-active patient can go from here, come out from there. There are standard templates for all these facilities. We could just study them and implement them. But the point, the place where the problem happens is where we implement them, right? So what we have been working largely in the public sector, okay, from the past. I think Shapurji has mostly done work with public infrastructure. But today, when I see, there are a whole lot of private hospitals which have been converted into COVID hospitals. We have patients everywhere. And the reason is because they had stringent treatment protocols and they had stringent operating protocols. The planning of those infrastructure was done in such a way that it was easy to convert these into a COVID hospital, so that we would have an airlock, we could have an infection control and all of that. So going forward, what we need to know, what we need to learn actually, is how to have a collaboration between the public infrastructure and the private infrastructure, because that is what is going to be a win-win situation, going forward. In the past 2 years, if you see, nobody has done, we say that private industry makes a lot of money, they charge so much, they are so expensive, and nobody from the rural population goes to private. But frankly, the past 2 years, they have done zero business. There has been no OPDs that have been functioning. Except for scheduled surgeries, nothing has been happening. They're mostly shut, and they're second wave, mostly everything has been converted into COVID hospitals. And the damage that we are doing to the entire infrastructure, public, private, just to fight the COVID situation is so disheartening that sometimes you get a fear that when you go back to the aftermath of this COVID, this entire pandemic surge, we'll not know how to do the damage control. We'll have no idea how to repair all this damage that is already done. So if you ask me, we have, thanks to all these organizations, the WHOs, the Indian, the Disaster Management, National Disaster Management Institute, the Indian IPHS for India, the Indian Public Healthcare System of India, they have sprung to the situation. They have given us mandates. They have given us standard templates to establish COVID facilities. They have given us standard templates to how to manage ventilation, how to control infection. They have given us a whole lot of data, which is so easily readable and implementable. But the problem or the success will lie in how we implement it, how we join hands, with seamlessly between public and private, and between, just to understand that there is some protocol, there's some standard for that matter, some standard that we follow when it comes to any building, whether it's education, whether it is a hospital. If there's a standard that we follow, it makes life easy for everybody. So tomorrow, if we have another such pandemic, which could be a variant of something like this, you could easily ask a private operator to come and manage the government facility, or pump in their resources, because government, the public sector, that is the government sector, the public sector, it really is deficient in resources. We have been struggling with the healthcare workers, with the deficiency of healthcare workers, and we have a whole pool of healthcare workers sitting in the private industry with not knowing, because lots of operations are shut down, they would be sitting just idling away or losing job or downsized and stuff like that. That there could be an interface there. If we have a standard in place, then it doesn't matter whether it is a public or whether it's a private, you just go fit out the facility and start operating it. And then the other question or the other observation that you made was with regards to auditorium being converted into a COVID facility. Those are things which are, those are the disaster management steps, which is like it's not like a permanent step. It's not like a permanent facility. It is like a temporary facility where you commission a area, you take a large space, you commission it to fit and then you decommission it. Like it happened, we had so many COVID facilities and COVID centers across all the metropolitans, all the 2-tier cities. And once the cases started coming down, they were decommissioned. And then once during the second wave, half of them were commissioned, half of them were not commissioned. The chaos that happened because of that is another story altogether. But so those are temporary facilities. Those are steps, or disaster management steps. But the infrastructure, the base infrastructure, whether it is public or whether it is private, the one innovation that we definitely need to do is have a collaboration between the public healthcare and the private healthcare. Which is happening, all the hospitals that we are doing now with the government or for the public sector, they are following protocols, they are following standards, they are following planning standards as far as space planning or mechanical planning or engineering planning is concerned. They are following it. But then the next step, the next challenge is, how will they operate it? Will they have resources to operate it? Will it be, they would say, you have so many instances, you have 10 operation theaters where half of them are not functioning because either they don't have that kind of caseload, or the area where it has been put up, that doesn't have that sort of a catchment area. Those kind of things. And those problems also can be addressed if you have a good collaboration with the private industry. And then you can modify or tailor make tailor modify the facility to suit the surrounding catchment. So if you have a rural population coming in or a semi-rural population coming in, you can plan your things accordingly and build in the flexibility such that it can cater to all sorts of population. And then you can also cater to these kind of pandemics or these kind of situations that can happen even in the future, right? So if you ask me, now whichever facility now we are doing, the projects which we are doing are have a mandate from the client that we need to have a separate infectious block, which could be a 30-bed infectious block. We are doing it for the government of Odisha. We are having a separate infectious block, which is planned based on the IGBC standards and the WHO standards, standard prototype for an infectious block, where you have there's nothing subjective there. It's nothing subjective. It's a very standard layout. You have to just implement it and fit it to your plot size or your building size or the footprint that you can possibly get in that area. But everything else, what comes where, which building comes where, which function comes where, whether it's an OT that goes up, whether it's a OPD that comes in the front, everything is a standard. And we could possibly just modify it to suit to a certain shape or something, but there is no tampering with that. That's a very clear mandate from the government, which is so encouraging, because typically the ideas that we have come across is that private hospitals you have such spacious things, they have such chic facilities, they have too much of advanced things which cannot cater to. Government is more for the the grassroots. But frankly, if you make the government sectors or the government infrastructure for grassroots, agreed, but nothing is stopping you from following a certain standard protocol which will help you in operating the facility, in especially in such times when we have learned that doesn't matter whether it is a government or whether it's a, whether it's a private, it doesn't really matter. Pandemic is a pandemic and you're just getting whatever help you need. So my one takeaway from this whole pandemic, of this whole working from home from 2 years, or working or trying to implement COVID clinics. We have set up COVID clinics from Shapurji. We have set up COVID clinics for the client. What I would take away is we should have a good collaboration between these two sectors, that is the private sector and the public sector. And we should, it's high time that we as a nation or as a population start believing and implementing some standards, accepting and implementing and adapting to standards, because there is some amount of research that would have gone, I'm not doing the research. There are people who are investing some time and doing the research, and they have certain set protocols and standards which we could implement just to modify to our needs. We could probably tweak it a bit, but let's implement and follow standards and protocols, which will help us, not to react in the future, and we'll be more prepared. That's my take on this whole 2 years of pandemic. Harsh, over to you.
Thank you so much. I think some really thought-provoking ideas, and I hope the co-panelists have also taken a note of whatever was discussed. Some very interesting points you mentioned related to regulatory framework, standardization, flexibility in design, collaboration of private sector with public sector. So I would want to go to Rajiv now. Rajiv, you have heard Shalina already, and the panelists before that also. Now, two very specific questions which come to my mind. One is, because Shalina mentioned regulatory framework, so just an afterthought, does this call for some sort of a upscaling or upgrading further, or further deliberation on the National Building Code also? Do you think so, that in the post-pandemic era, whether it's education spaces, whether it is residential spaces, whether it is healthcare facilities, private, public, let's keep that debate aside for a while, does this call for actually a relook at the National Building Code also?
Harsh, first of all, just wishes from my side, and I just thanks to you to just calling me for this webinar.
Thank you so much.
After listening all the eminent panelists, my take, like, combination of private and public sector is bit beyond my scope, but I agree to I agree to this thing. We can use private sector manpower to uphold the government sector infrastructure in case of pandemics, because we have seen in these last 2 months that maximum of doctors and staffs in government hospitals got positive, and they were they were isolated, and hospitals were getting crunch of staff. That is a good point. Government should give a thought to this thing. Regarding designing and planning of healthcare facility post-COVID, post-pandemic, we are still working on these things, but we are working on certain points, how to go about, and I have this request to the architects in the panel and the viewers who are listening to us. They should start work and give the suggestion on the planning, because what we are thinking is that there is some change of mode of design in post-COVID healthcare facilities. Still, there are something which were doing the same thing in earlier hospital design can be done a bit improvised, so to meet the post-COVID requirements. First thing which we are now again working on master plan, where to locate which facility, so that like for example, if we locate emergency and this triage and trauma areas in a way that they don't conflict with the general public, general patient area, the patient movement, the vehicular movement, the pedestrian movement doesn't conflict with the normal patients. So we can have a separate access leading to these emergency areas, which actually caters to pandemic patients. So the normal patient, they don't frightened to go to hospitals, as they know that we have a separate access to our normal OPD or a normal thing, and the infected patients are going with a separate path. First thing, we are working on this thing. After this, we are now again coming on emergency areas, which are the first respond in a healthcare when the patient, maybe it's infected, maybe it's not infected, are coming. The first response we need to, when I mean, we are thinking on to enlarge the areas in the emergency areas, so that we can, at the time of need, we can have a separate area to attend the positive patients or the suspected patients. I mean, we are not concluding this thing, but we are working on this thing. After this, I mean, we are also thinking to use uh, open areas, parking areas for to convert in the bed areas or in the ICU areas, in case when we need larger ICUs or larger wards for this positive patient or the infected patients. For this, we need to have, during the planning and execution, we need to have the provision of our MGPS over there, that is oxygen point and other points over there, and time to time we need to test them whether they are working or not, so that in case of emergency, these areas can be converted into patient areas, and these one, for example, 1,000 bedded hospital can be converted to a 1,500 hospital, 15 bedded hospital. These areas, I mean, we are working on this thing. After this, we are also working what should happen right at the entrances, all entrances. Right now we are have free access to all, no scanning, no thermal scanning. Now we are going to details that what are the equipment should be provisioned near these entrances: thermal scanners, hand wash, sanitizing machines, all these things, how they should be placed, so that people are forced to use before entering the campus, before entering the building. uh, Further, this second wave also showed us that the virus remain active in air or on surfaces for a much larger period. So we need to change the surfaces, like touch surfaces in the areas, like IV fluid stand, all those things. We need to change the material. We have copper, for an example, as a material which itself destroys all these germs and viruses. So we should, I mean, we are on working on this thing, whether this should work or not, the use of materials in these all these patient areas. Further, further the waiting areas, these waiting areas at the time of need, the larger waiting areas which are now being used for OPD and all the other areas, can be converted into bed areas. For that, we already suggesting our new hospitals, when we see and formulate the design, to have separate, to have additional MGPS. I mean, all the OT point, oxygen point, all those additional in the, like, 6 bedded ward should have at least 9 to 10 OT oxygen points, and all the MGPS point bedhead panels in the, and added additional bedhead panels, so the patients from the other wards can be transported to these areas in case of emergency, and those vacant wards can be used as ward areas for infected patients, for to increase the number of beds in case of pandemic. And for office in areas in hospitals, now we are having the straight workstation system. we are also working on that to have a zigzag system, a modular system, so that people, the working staff, which when they are sitting on their workstations, they don't have a one-to-one access, a one-to-one front-to-front access to each other. Zigzag arrangement or some kind of another arrangement, we should go for that. We are working on those things. Uh, in addition to these, which we are talking about, physical distancing, social distancing, for that we are now again, earlier Pandis has said that OPD works for 8 to 2 or something, for 6 to 8 hours, but we are suggesting hospitals to get the OPD work for at least 10 to 12 hours, to divide the OPDs in these working hours, and to have a good management of patient in queue management system or a patient handling system, so that the congestion of patients at peak hours can be distributed throughout the day, and the congestion can be reduced, and this physical distances can be followed. As this pandemic was a respiratory pandemic, what we are thinking on the lines to have a separate OPD, separate access, a separate triage for respiratory diseases. We are working on these things to have a separate thing to design. In the normal days, it will work as a normal OPD, normal respiratory OPD, and in case of pandemic, a separate access can be opened, and they have a separate access for the respiratory patients coming in the hospital. Other than this, all these IPDs I have talked about, uh, this thing which the earlier panelist said about the separate infectious block, we already are planning on a separate, already given a proposal to government government to have a separate infectious disease block, approximate of bed capacity of 150 bedded or 100 bedded capacity. But this block should be so located that in normal days it may be used as a normal facility, as a private wards or something for VIP wards, because they must be having isolation rooms, for single bedded isolation rooms. So in normal days, this block can be used as a normal healthcare facility, and in case of pandemic, only single door shut and close, a separate access. This block can be used as a separate infectious diseases block. We shouldn't term this block as a infectious diseases block. Otherwise, people won't. I mean, they are not interested to go over there. They will afraid to go over there. We should name them wisely. But this block should be so placed that the manpower, in normal days, the same manpower can be used in the normal hospital and this infectious disease block. And in case of pandemic, after closing one door, this whole block can be separated from the main building and can be used as a block or as a healthcare facility for this pandemic areas. Uh, Above all these things, as this airborne infection, in normal days, we are following some standards for air changes. In this pandemic, post pandemic, we should have a provision of maximum air changes, so that the air changes frequent as above the previous norms, so that the airborne infection, the chances of airborne infection can be reduced to negligible thing. And one thing which we are discussing in the earlier thing, there's there's something difference between a private sector hospital and a government sector hospital. I have a view. We have a scene in metro in India. When metro came in India, everybody was of a view कि भाई ये तो कामयाब नहीं होगी, कौन escalator यूज करेगा, किसी को यूज करने नहीं आता, कौन सेंसर वाला टोकन यूज करेगा. But metro has taught us that people can change themselves to the changing technology, and now they are using escalator, they are using tokens to use their sensor operated doors. So we should open to the new technologies in the government sector. We shouldn't have a mentality while designing a government hospital कि ये सरकारी hospital design कर रहे हैं. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. We should be, because diagnosis of a disease, maybe it is in private hospital or it is in a government hospital, it is same thing. The treatment is same thing. The handling of the patient is the same thing. The difference is the handling, because in private areas we have much more staff to handle a much less patient over there. But in government sector, it is the other way around thing. We have lesser staff to handle more patients over there. So but we should design a good hospital with all the highest or the maximum rich specification, so that the people coming over there, when they enter in the building, after entering the building, they should have a, in their mind that we shouldn't spoil the flooring, we shouldn't spoil the walls, we shouldn't spoil the tiles. They I mean learn, maybe in their first visit they don't understand this thing, but in the coming second third visit they will opt to all these newly grown changing technology and changing systems, and they will come to the same level as we are doing in the private hospital. We have an airport for these examples. Right now we have all kind of passengers in airports, maybe they're higher end level or a lower end level, but the lower end level or labor class is also traveling from at airports, and they are using those facilities very efficiently. They are not spoiling the things over there. So we should open to all these things. We should teach, we should uh, brief to our people coming over there by way of media, by way of public address system, to use how to use the facilities, how to use the technology. I'm sure people will. In India, people are more open to learning. They are more open to, disobeying things and more open to obeying things. And in a healthcare confidence system where they are at the mercy of the staff over there, they are bound. They will automatically will turn themselves to newer growing technology. I think
Thank you so much,
this is a
sir.
thing which I
Thank
can.
you. Thank you so much. I think very pertinent points. Ashok ji, I will come back to you, sir, quickly. Two questions I have as follow up. One I will pose to you, and then I'll go to Dr. Sharma again, and also the same question to Dinesh ji also. Ashok ji, Rajiv just now spoke about certain changes and that flexibility of having the provision to scale up if a disaster strikes. Even Shalina was talking about something similar. And then there was a thought process regarding sort of regulatory framework and standardization of certain practices in, say, line with WHO norms and other such things. Do you really think National Building Code needs a relook now?
Yes, very much. National Building Code is a very, very outdated one, and I'm really surprised that almost every month we have some situation where we encounter this difficulty of getting a high-rise building done. In the sense that NBC says that it has to be 30 meters within, especially the critical care facilities. So what happens that, and this also holds good for medical college-like buildings, where these buildings are termed as educational, and there again we have got a bar of 30 meters. That means we can only have a building of G+6 because the height is about 4 meters or maybe a little more than that, 4.2 something. So now the after effect of this is that though places like Mumbai and other metros, there is some kind of waiver or some kind of we are trying to tweak this law and regulation in such a way that we place the critical care facilities in this height, that is within G+6, and take the normal wards on the upper level. So whether it's Medanta or any other, all these private corporate hospitals in Delhi and other places too. Buildings, you have seen, they're all more than 18, 20 floors high. So, but then when we start designing, then normally this comes. So we have to really tweak in a manner that it suits us and it suits NBC also. But then it's irony that in a place, any place in India, when we know that we are having hospitals of 20 floors and maybe 15, 20 floors high, then why not amend these NBC provisions where we can really have a good, robust system. Now, all these firefighting and fire fighting devices of fire departments in all these cities, big cities and other places, they've got all these advanced machines and all that. So those days are gone when we had some handicaps. So that's one aspect of the regulatory framework being looked at, and I'm sure it should be revisited, relooked, so as to suit the situation better and make things more rational. That's one.
I think I'll take this to Dinesh ji also. I saw him
Sure.
raising hand. So Dinesh ji, National Building Code, all the learnings which we are talking about from this pandemic and even before that, like a lot of forums I have heard this, that this is the time when there should be a serious relook at the entire building code. So a quick thought from your end, and then I guess our panelist Mr. Saha is still to speak, so I'll then go quickly to him. Yeah, Dinesh ji.
Yes. Yeah, not the entire building code, but for the health facility at least, looking to the pandemic, it is required very much. And moreover, the operational things are more important.
Yeah.
Those are administrative matters. Even now, we have some of the things, they are included in the norms, but due to the operational paucities, we are this thing not utilizing these things properly.
Correct. And just a follow-up question, Rajiv.
One thing.
I'll quickly come back to you. Just
One thing.
yeah,
Just one thing.
yeah.
As far as NBC is concerned, NBC, like for height restriction is there. Height restriction has been decided based on certain availability of fire protection system in India. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, nobody is stopping us to design our building beyond NBC.
Mm-hmm.
NBC is the basic minimum thing that we have to provide minimum in this thing. We should go for maximum better things to have better safe hospitals, safe working and safe functional spaces. We in ministry we always suggest our consultant and all those things in fire in the terms of regard of firefighting system, that we should design our building beyond norms. Beyond the norms are the basic minimum thing, that at least we should design this much, but nobody stopping us to design beyond them. We should be designing our hospitals, healthcare facilities, as they're very sensitive building. They need to work 24/7 in case of disaster also. These buildings should be safe. They need to work in disaster also. That's why we need to design our hospitals beyond norms, and nobody is stopping us. Like our firefighting system and other functional aspects, we doesn't restrict ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
NBC norm. We
Okay.
should go beyond to have a more functional healthcare
So
facilities.
you mean to say that the public sector and the government per se is open to the ideas of exploring beyond NBC also when it comes to the design parameters? That's what I understand. Now I'll pose a last question to Dr. Sharma before I go to my co-panelist Mr. Saha. Dr. Sharma, in the first half we were having a very intense discussion and debate on education sector. So one of the panelists, he made a very pertinent point related to a design audit of all the education facilities. The idea was that one, yes, we need to come up with new facilities which will be obviously compliant to all the learnings which we are taking forward. But what about the existing ones? Is it the right time to do a design audit and see that how they can be more made more flexible, more compliant, and what changes as per these new priorities are required in the existing health setup also?
Yeah,
So any take you have on this?
you mean educational institutions attached to the
No,
healthcare?
I'm talking about healthcare. I'm talking right now only on healthcare.
Only
The
healthcare. Okay.
hospitals, the
Okay.
healthcare
So
facilities, do
lot
they
of
need a design audit?
Yeah. So a lot of discussion has happened on the vertical expansion versus the horizontal expansion as to the NBC rules and all these things.
Mhm.
So giving the having the space constraint, you can go beyond say 30 meters or 20 floors, 25 floors and all that. But while making these compact designs, there are certain security aspects which Mr. Rajiv has mentioned, that there are firefighting equipment now. They also can cope up with all these things and these things. But I still want that as far as the space is available in class 2 or class 3 tier cities, the horizontal expansion is much more better than the vertical expansion, because it requires a lot of things to go beyond certain limit, and to have then security and firefighting, lift. Then if some disaster happens, then the earthquake resistance buildings and all these things are very important. The strength of the plinth and all that. But if you have space, and if you go in a horizontal expansion, it will have large space required, but it will become very space, so that you can have different blocks, and these blocks are connected, so that the spread of infection is also very much controlled. Otherwise, if there is a building of say 20 floor, and there are say infections in some floor and all that, and if you require to clean up, fumigate, and redesign all these things in areas like pandemic, converting ward into ICU, then converting the regular say post-op care or any other usual regular wards into the cubicles or isolation area with laminar flow and all these things, and then it becomes difficult. So my view will is, if the space is available, if land is not an issue, then we should go for horizontal expansion rather than vertical. But yes, in city like Mumbai, when the FSI is the main concern, and now hospitals are getting FSIs up to 5, we must go for vertical extension rather than the horizontal, so that in a given space we can accommodate much more ward, all the facilities, ward, emergency, isolation, ICU, post-op care, and everything can be in the same building with lot of open spaces in between. And there are other areas which we can keep vacant for such disaster when it happens, so that these facilities can be converted into makeshift arrangement for to combat or to cope up with the pandemic situation like COVID. As in Mumbai, we have seen the NESCO, the jumbo care in BKC area, then the dome in National Sports Complex. All these were converted into COVID care centers with around 1,000 beds, 1,500 beds, and all that. So this was a clear example of horizontal expansion versus the vertical expansion, but they were all makeshift arrangements. But if you want a permanent hospital with a good investment, then yes, vertical expansion and vertical extension is all welcome.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. So now I'll go to my co-panelist, Mr. Sudipta Saha, who is also the head of our technical services. And Saha, sir, lot of discussion you have been patiently hearing related to surfaces, secondary infections, and other such things which pertain to our field of expertise. So now I will invite you as a subject matter expert to share with the panelists what industry has been doing,
Yes.
what kind of research we have been sort of getting into, and how that can make a difference going forward. So
Yes.
over to you, Mr. Saha.
Yes. Good afternoon, respected and distinguished panelists and dignitaries, participants. I know Dr. Sharma more than 20 years. He is kind and helped to Johnson in many ways. Uh, we worked together many years in different perspective. Prism Johnson is a familiar name in building material industry, as you all aware. It's 3 division and 7 million metric ton capacity Prism cement plant is at Satna. And RMC India, more than 100 plants spread all over India. HR Johnson Tiles, household name for more than 60 years. Next. Myself responsible for all plants operations. Last 30 years, I have witnessed the phenomenal growth in tile industry. It is mere 6 by 6 inch by 6 inch tile to 6 feet by 10 feet tiles. My basic contribution is to develop value-added functionality to meet the implied needs, basically implied needs of the society. Today it is my privilege to present the most versatile and innovative tile company in the world. Next. We work with mission improving lifestyle of our customer by providing innovative products and services with core values, honesty, integrity, fairness, teamwork, people as a source of strength, passion for excellence, and innovation, entrepreneurship. Next. Actually, innovation is our core value of our long journey, where knowledge is the key driver of this initiative. In tile industry, only our R&D center is approved by Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, DSIR, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. Next. And we are proud to be associated with different Council of Scientific and Industrial Research Labs, CSIR labs, and prestigious institute like IIT, IISc, Bangalore, Park, etc. Next. Tile industry witnessed many innovations in last 2 decades. Most of the innovations Johnson pioneered. Many first in India and abroad is Johnson Kitty, like as you are seeing, digital tile, germ-free tile, stain-free, tactile, industrial, anti-static, and many more. Next. So today my product, what I try to offer you, innovative products for healthcare industry. Next. So basically one-stop tile solution for entire healthcare industry. Radiation shielding tile, germ-free tile, it's a mistake that education sector I have not changed for that. Today morning only I was preparing for them. So radiation shielding tile, germ-free tile, anti-static tile, tactile, cool roof tile, positive tile, stepping stone, meteor, and max grip. So I will go in details in each, and which my role is to at least little bit enrich your knowledge if I can. Next. So first product is radiation shielding tiles, which we are going to launch. Because of pandemic, we could not take the trial with CSIR AMPRI because the product innovation is done by Advanced Material Science Processing Research Institute, AMPRI Bhopal, and we are the taker of this product. Next. So it can application areas as radiography, fluorescence fluoroscopy unit, interventional radiology, cardiac angiography, computed topography, dentals, CBCT, and OPG. This tile save millions of life. And next. Alternates are basically brick, concrete. Bricks and no standard control of density of the bricks. So density varies. So no, that is why there is no effective shielding guaranteed. And concrete develop cracks during and air pocket during installation. And the crack propagates when X-ray generates lot of high instant temperature. And definitely, other than these two are lead as well as steel. Steel is very heavy structure and conductive in nature. And lead, everybody knows that it is a toxicity and carcinogenic in nature as per IARC. So only one solution, non-toxic, non-reactive, permanent radiation shielding tiles, which is much lower costly. And next. And this is also much less costly, much bigger life, non-toxic resources, easy to install. Tile is easy to install anywhere in X-ray clinic or any cardiology clinic. So it's a very easy. And next. So Atomic Energy Regulatory Board is the board you all know who approves the tile. In their site, if you go, you will find that our tile is also approved. That is why I put the reference here. And next, you will find next that lead-free shielding material have been developed by CSIR. This material also be used a radiation protection, medical diagnostic, X-ray installation. So everywhere, X-ray, radiography, cardiac angiography, computer topography, dental CBCT, OPG, everywhere these tiles also approved along with others. But others having a lot of drawbacks. That is why, and it is easy. Tiles are easy and low cost, so you can use that one. Next product is, as I told, is germ-free tiles and sanitary ware based on the Johnson patented raw material. This is there we are the pioneer in industry. We developed nano silver in our own R&D center, which is got patented, and then we put in our tile. So tile is 99% antibacterial. Bacteria killing ability is within 24 hours. It kills 99.99% bacteria. We guaranteed that one. Next. So our patent number is something this 2983936 Next. So basically, questions are we equipped with constant battle with germs? Where toilet bowl is having 3.2 million bacteria per square inch, bathtub nearly 1.2 lakhs per square inch. and similar to bathroom facades, sinks, walls, contain more than 6,000 bacteria per square inch. One bacteria can multiply 1 million in a half day. So our germ-free tile can kill the deposited bacteria on the tiles, bacteria, molds, and we also checked in viruses also, which is non-enveloped kind of viruses we have checked. And enveloped kind of virus like SARS, it's not available in many of the R&D center, microbiological laboratory, and they are not handling that one as on today. So it's not possible till now to check with that virus, but we are quite sure that it also work in that kind of respiratory virus also it will work. What's working is the same principle. So germ-guard is an active silver-based bacterial antibacterial compound. It is safe, non-toxic because it is inorganic in nature and long life, non-corrosive, protect 24/7. Inhibits the growth of the deadly bacteria, virus, and fungus. This is the right product for bathroom, cafeteria. Next. Next. Yeah, as I mentioned to you, next. So how it works, basically, that is the most important question, how it works and what is the life of it, how it can ensure the life is more next 20 years or 15 years. So basic is that what we do in the glazed surface, on the top surface of the tiles, we put silver nanoions during the preparation of glaze and it fire along with the product. So it is a fire of 1200 degrees centigrade or 1100 degrees centigrade. It fired, and the fired product having lot of homogeneously distributed nano silver particles. These nano silver particles with moisture, it leach out to the top surface and migrate and leach out to the top surface. When it gets the bacteria or fungus or molds on the top surface, it attacks the protoplasm of the bacteria cell membrane and destroy the bacteria. That's the principle. So in this principle and this compound, you believe us, when we supply to many other industry also, as a Asian Paints, whatever they launched, it is our antibacterial compound. We are supplying them, and they made the antibacterial tiles, whatever they are claiming. And we have checked more than 140 kinds of bacteria and 12-13 kinds of fungus and molds, where everywhere we found the same efficacy. Next. So it is tested in a microbiological laboratory, ISO. Basically, Japanese protocol is a similar protocol which developed earlier, 2801, 2010, and then ISO protocol also can. So it is a calculated based on reduction of bacteria. Next. Basically, you see the colony growth. Here, the treated sample, and here is untreated, no surface is not treated. So here the colonial growth is happened, and you can see the bacteria in naked eye. Here it is a destroyed 99.17% of that. Next. So this is the same bacteria photograph as you are seeing, volatile and this kind of bacteria, 99.17 killing. Next. So it's, as you well understood, the application area can be operation theaters, as I mentioned, easily clean, no stain resistant, every time stain resistant or stain proof, I can say, general ward, hospital, bathroom, hospital catering, or blood labs, everywhere where the germ can generate, we can use this particular tile as a surface, as a aesthetics, no deterioration of aesthetics. You can get the aesthetics as it is, as well as you can get the best quality tile which can constantly killing the bacteria and germs over the years. Next. Now I can take you a little time, like positive tiles. So basically, what is positive tiles we launched? It is very recent product we have launched. Today's urban environment generates huge amount of positive ions due to industrial pollution, automobile emissions, electrical appliances generating electromagnetic impulses, chemicals from construction chemical, electromagnetic waves, fluorescent light, forced air ventilation generate huge positive ion, which disbalances the ionic effect of body. And negative ion generates, you know, all know, areas close to waterfall, forest. It impacts between the particle from water and environment, produces electrostatic when leads to negative ion. That negative ion generates in an area where a lot of water fountain, and trees, plants are there during photosynthesis. Water discharges, nascent water discharges, and that creates negative ions with electrostatic and sun rays with that. So that negative ions, if you look in a different area in fountain, it is established that more than 5,000 negative ions per centimeter cube area it is available, and in a park it is more than 800, and in a home you can find is not more than 10. I have a we have a measuring instrument, and which can measure the, in a factory it is 25 30, and all will be happy if this kind of negative ion is available in our home, which is not actually, because 10 to 15, because all the appliances, gadgets in home, lot of computers operating, every home is now 4 5 computers, one television, two televisions, and lot of electronic appliances are there. So lot of positive ions are generating. So if in home, without going to the nature, can we generate negative ions? It is possible. We develop that particular one. So this is a anti-positive tiles. As you know, newborn babies positive and negative ion ratio is 20/80. However, with age, environmental changes, negative ions in the body decreases. Human body having more than 6 trillion cells. Oxidation of these cells causes diseases, and negative ion suppresses oxidation. Air conditioner depletes the atmosphere of negative ions. Tiles will release this negative ion that air conditioner removes. So ion balance at home will be perfect. Actually, the fundamental thought is that more the negative ion in atmosphere means more negative ion we are exposed to. And our, as you all know, that if you go to the fountain or forest, our mood is changing, because actually this negative ion, when it goes to the blood, it is believed to have a discharge of more serotonin, which is a mood changing hormone, helping to enhance mood. So this kind of tiles is really wonderful and refreshing, energizing effect of negative ion. With our porcelain positive tile range, you can be happy. Positivity at home or hospital begins with negative ion from your tiles. So basically, these are the basic principle. If you have time, I can show you the reading of the machine, which I do have, or I can show you later if you have interest. So next, I think time is not permitting. So as I mentioned you all the things. Next. Yeah. Now, electrostatic tiles, as you know, tile is a anti-static tiles. As you know, tile is an insulator, right? No electricity pass on the tile, but all the electronic appliances, gadgets, lot of generators, lot of electrostatic charge, and the charge, static electricity. That static electricity, human body takes it, but it cannot percolate through the floor because floor is insulator, right? As the floor is insulator, so it cannot dissipate it. In addition to that, if it is exposed to continuously on in a server room, on a computer room, or in an arms and ammunition center, or in a big computer lab, so it is exposed to a lot of electrostatic charges, and human body become fireball inside it. And if any kind of flashes, next, a destruction like this can happen, which basically happens, mostly happens in arms and ammunitions. So DRDO requested us at very long back to develop this particular one, and we worked hard and giving them solution this particular tile. And this is conducting electricity and the dissipative type, conductive and dissipative type, because insulator is 10 to the power minus 10 to the power 12 ohm per centimeter, whereas dissipative type 10 to the power 9, and conduction is 10 to the power 6. Next. You can see that one, and everywhere conventional static electricity discharge happening in this way, localized way, because every instrument, every equipment will have a earthing point. But if you have put this kind of anti-static tiles, you need not to put individual earthing in a MRI room, 2-3 MRI machines everywhere, separate earthing not required. Every high precision machine can have a one single floor, like operation theater. You have seen a lot of static electricity generated due to the monitoring equipment, and we are doing the discharging through the bed. But float tiles, the anti-static tiles can be in operation theater, which is also stain proof. So cleaning is not the issue, but it is a static charge free room. Something like that can be possible in thought process as a design stage if you think to do. Next. Basically, as I was mentioning, conductive nature is 10 to the power 6 ohm per centimeter, dissipative 10 to the power 9, insulator is 10 to the power, common tiles is 10 to the power 12 per centimeter, floor is also similar, but whereas conductive nature, where the only solution is resin, somebody puts the resin, special plastics and resins also a solution, 10 to the dissipative kind, but resin is not a fireproof, or special plastics also not a fireproof, where the tile is a fireproof. That is why all the industrial houses like plastic industries, petrochemical industries, or DRDO facilities, and lot of computer hub of they are preferring our tiles to put in their area. Next. So it's basically as it's a conductive in nature. So you put the tile, lay in between the tile, you would require to put the cable inside it and discharge outside the particular room. In between the tile, you should use the grout as a carbon grout, graphite grout, because in between the joints it should be also conductor. So it's a monolithic surface, because joints is a air, so it will be insulator. So that is why carbon grout should be used instead of common grouts. Next. So this is also our patented product. This we got a couple of years back. So 2005-6 we applied, and then 2009 we got the patent. So next. This application area, as you know, very commonly in any server room, any precise equipments, any laboratories, proper laboratory, instrumental laboratories where the static electricity generates, it can be a good solution for that particular area. Next. So build your own safe place. Next. This particular is a very company truly believe the inclusiveness in society. True sense, tactile is such product for visually impaired people. We have designed the tile as per the specification led by Royal Institute, National Institute of Blind, UK, and Department of Environment, Transport and Regions, UK DTE, and American Disabilities Act. So this corundum surface finish is enhanced hardness, special textures, also for guiding the risk areas, stopping points, etc. I can share you a small story. Morning also I shared this one. 2 years back, I visited a very remote hilly forest area in Tripura. Its name is Unokoti. Earlier it was an alpha control place, so no tourist was there. Now tourist can visit. So I have gone there. I see in more than 100 years old, lot of big Shiva sculptures are there in different hills at different heights. An entire area is made by some architect definitely, and the pathways are made. And on the pathway, I am amazed the Endura tactiles are laid on the entire pathways of the hill, so that differently able people can feel, touch the place. I have been touched for those tiles and felt proud as a Johnsonite. You can also put in a hospital for the differently able people. They can move independently in that particular hospital or any other spaces. Next. So as you've seen, the design is like that. When in the long run, it's a moving path where the buttons, it is stopping point. So this enhances the sense of freedom of dignity of visually impaired. Next. I think we don't have time, so we should proceed this one, or 1 minute का वीडियो है, you can see.
नाश्ते में क्या खाओगे?
अंडा भुर्जी।
ब्रेड तो खत्म हो गई है। अब रुको, मैं लेकर आती हूँ।
रुको, आज मैं लाता हूँ।
These are the areas where is a stopping point.
चाचा, एक ब्रेड तो दे दो।
आज बिटिया नहीं आई साथ में?
आज मैं अकेला ही आ गया।
बात एक रोड क्रॉस करके ब्रेड लाने की नहीं है, बात है आत्मविश्वास जगाने की।
I think it's our small initiative for for inclusiveness of the society. Now the cool roof tiles, SRI tiles, basically this also I can little explain to you because all you are all technical engineers. So albedo means the whiteness. Albedo is a Latin word. It's synonymous with the cool surface. But actually white is not always a good indicator. It depends on thermal optical properties. So cool roof calculation in compliance with LEED. LEED means Leadership of Energy and Environmental Design by US Green Building Council, where the standard black reflectance 0.05 and emittance 9 is considered as a 0, and standard white reflectance 0.8 and emittance 0.9 considered as 100. So SRI is the solar reflectance index, measure of solar reflectance and emissivity of the material. As per LEED, if it is more than 78, surface is cool. So testing method is SRI AST ME 1090. Our special glaze, composed of aluminum silicate fine particles embodied with zirconium silicate and fired at high temperature, makes SRI more than 90. And this particular product is certified by Green Pro. Tactile also certified by Green Pro. Is a Green Product and Services Council and CII certified our product. It reduces surface temperature 8 to 10 degree. If you use in hospital roof, top floor, definitely 3 to 4 degree temperature will be reduced inside. Outside temperature reduction is 8 to 10 degree in full sun. Reduce cooling requirement and saves electricity. Reduces conduction of heat into the building. It reduces the R1 heat island effect, because R1 heat island effect, I believe everybody knows this particular one of typically 60% coverage by the concrete pavements and roof in the urban areas, and which increases 4 to 5 degree temperature in comparison to adjacent vegetation area. So it reduces global warming. It saves ozone layer also. And our Endura tiles are waterproof, are foolproof, fully vitrified. So it increases the better waterproofing ability of the roof. Next. I told already all the points to you. And basically this is the stepping stone. It is ready-made. You can put this staircase, and basically it's a completely friction resistance, unique full bullnose edges, full body steps, and there is a staircase will be having a 3 friction points on the in granite. You see that the ground it is making a downwards, but this tile is upwards hill, so there is no chance of slippery, no chance. So everybody everywhere, if you use, we have not seen after putting this tile anybody falling as a slip in staircase. No complaint has been found after that particular one. Next. So Meteorite tile is a high thickness, 20 millimeter thickness tile, and this is the only tile in country which is ISI certified, acid alkali resistance tile, and certification IS 4457 2007 specification. As per that specification, we got the certified. So ISI tile, I can say. Next. It can use in any high traffic area, high load bearing capacity area, parking area, swimming pool adjacent, anywhere it can be used. Next. This is a truly speaking, this is a true anti-skid tile, max grip. In a hospital, when we go with our patients, and sometimes we have to pull our wheelchairs. The basic fear is that wheelchair should not slip and we should not fall. So fundamentally on that, keeping on mind, we have developed this kind of tiles, which is available in R10, R11, R12. It's a max grip. What is R? R is a German specification. German specification, what is a DIN 51130 basis and DIN 51097, I think, ABC, water based. So where R9 is up to 10 degrees slope with normal shoe, people will not fall back with water also. And R10 is 10 to 19 degrees slope, people will not come back. So it can move with a normal shoe. And at the same time, with water slippery also, it will not come. R11 is 90 to 27 degrees slope, and R12 is 27 to 35 degrees slope. 35-degree slope is an abnormal slope. That also people will not sleep. So that's the magic of this tile. And what we speak to you, we prove it because we are having the only that kind of machine. RAM testing machine is there. We do have in our plant, and this is the only tile company which is having the RAM testing machine. It do not have anywhere in any CSIR laboratory, not in even in IITs, IISc, nowhere. All the hundreds, more than 100 government laboratories also do not have. But we have this one because what we tell to the customer, we deliver with the right specs. Next. So as you understand very clearly where it can be used in hospital, and I think, so next. So as I, at the virtual completion of my presentation, whatever I given allotted time, I tried to complete within that. Next. Lot of awards and accolades. We do have Super Brand Award, Trusted Brand Award, Best Brand, Red Ram, Green Pro, everything we do have. And you can rest assured what we speak, we deliver. Next. So this is a truly versatile ceramic company, actually two versatile Johnson company. So I am proud Johnsonite, and I believe you also to be a proud customer of Johnson Tiles, of that this kind of innovative product. Do for the society. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir, for this insightful.
I'm most welcome. Have any questions on anything? Ashok sir, Dinesh sir, Rajiv sir, and my favorite Sharma sir.
So I will go back to all the panelists. Any follow-up questions if they have, and if not, then for concluding remarks.
Actually, I am in plant. Our net is not so fast, so I thought without hazard I should do without video. So I think let's see.
Rajiv, I'm Ashok here.
Yes, sir.
This was very interesting and I mean very informative presentation that you just shared with us. Just small question. One regarding this high sensitive area of option theater. Supposing we use that anti-static flooring there.
Yeah. Yes.
So what is the vulnerability of the joints that we'll encounter there? That's just a question.
Yeah, vulnerability is because the area is you can use carbon grouts end of the day. Reason is carbon grouts also a conducting. You have to, basic purpose is to make the surface conductive. At the same time, at the joints, there should not be bacteria and viruses. That's also to be ensured. So that's the reason, and which is to be better choice. So that way, and some of the hospitals maintains single floor resin coating or something, but end of the day, it is not fireproof at all. So that way is better, but definitely limitation is the joint. At the joint is bacteria, fungus at the joints. That's the limitation, and which is possible now. We can try to do antibacterial grouts also, but this anti-static tile is not antibacterial tile. Wall you can use antibacterial, and floor if you do separate something, other tiles also that is possible antibacterial or antiviral, but this anti-static tile is not antiviral tile.
There was a copper strip shown in the sketch that you had put up there.
Yes, yes.
So what is that exactly? I mean, like that's inevitably used or?
No. It's every corner there is a down, and 45 degree there is a 1 inch by 1 inch 45 degree down. So if you join 4 tiles, it is a kind of rhombosis form. So in that area you put a copper plate, and grouts you do the carbon, and the underneath, total underneath there will be a copper cable. If you do the cable and touching with the copper plates, so it will go to the grout directly. So number of equipments, whatever you do, you can put without any separate earthing. Like I did specifically in Bark. One big laboratory I did. I personally visited there because I know many of them when after development, and they are still happy. Maybe more than 20-25 equipments in a single laboratory, high precise, and plus is that with single earthing will give the precise precision of the equipment also. There is no variation of their pulses. So reading also will be more perfect. So as per them, they are very happy in that particular one.
Thank you very much.
So, Sahas sir,
Yeah, yes, sir.
I was interested in your anti-radiation tiles.
Yes, sir.
So, how much they are economical for, say, radiology units like CT scan unit, any
Sir, it is
radiology unit?
much cheaper
Much,
than lead. So
much
actually,
cheaper than
lead is
ladies.
around, sir. You consume not less than 1,200 rupees per square feet in lead, including installation. And whereas lead is self-weight, density is 10. Every 4 or 5 years, the gap between the lead tiles, it falls down. So again, if you truly speaking, you require to redo again. But Indian situation, nobody does do redo.
Yeah,
Ultimately, patients are suffering. But in the tile, you can get within 400 to 500 rupees per square feet, including laying. And it's an interlocking tile, so there is no joint. Joint is there, but joint is interlocking. So there is no something is passing. Interlocking hai, so no X-ray will pass. So specifically that one. And due to lockdown, we could not do it. Though Rohit had talked with you earlier,
yeah,
but
I
still,
know.
post to that, lockdown happened, so we could not do much about it. But definitely within a month or two, we'll launch this particular product.
Very good. Thank you very much. We will definitely try to
Yes, sir.
utilize and see it
Yes,
in
sir.
our new hospitals.
Yes,
Thank
at
you.
least it
Thank
will
you.
save millions of people
Oh, yeah,
in effect of carcinogenic lead.
correct.
And really Indian bricks are not suitable for any kind of purpose because
I
of
know, I know, I know.
radiation of different
Density,
densities.
density. Yes. Thank you very much, Sahas. Thank you,
Sahasab,
sir.
there are a couple of questions from the audience who want to know a bit more about anti-static tiles, and they are saying that in the joints, can the grouting be used as epoxy, or can latex
No.
be utilized in that?
It is a graphite jointing. Carbon joints should be there because the grout also to be conductive. Graphite is only, it should be mixed with epoxy, but ultimately carbon should be there.
Mm-hmm.
The graphite should be there to making the conductance.
Okay. So I would now quickly go to my fellow panelists for a concluding round of remarks. We have heard experts from all walks of life who are somewhere or the other related with the healthcare design and development. Plus, in Mr. Saha, we also heard what industry has been doing, what kind of research and development industry has been putting forward. Just to conclude and take a few pointers as the key takeaways, I think I will start with Ms. Shalina Menon. Shalina, can we have your concluding remarks?
Hi, yeah, hi. I would stick to what I suggested in the beginning. It's today we are comfortably. I mean, not to mention that we are discussing a lot of things. We are brainstorming because we are comfortably positioned inside our houses and doing a lot of work from home and webinars. It will be good if if any one of us, anyone more influential from us, can take this forward and think of collaborations. Think of collaborating and trying to make a seamless industry, seamless healthcare industry, regardless of public, private, or whatever. And your suggestions, like can we have more recommendations, and can we upgrade the NBC? When I was listening to that, again, if NBC is just a recommending body. It's not a regulatory body, so they just recommend, and that's a problem, because they should regulate it. They should not recommend, because recommendations it's not taken seriously. End of the day, it's the local government, it's the local bodies, the local fire departments which make it mandatory. And there should be such one thing that should be made mandatory, and there should be protocols. We can do it. We should have collaborations without so that everybody wins in the end of the day. You said we have experts from all the industry. Today I think all of us are experts from the point of view of being a patient. I'm sure every one of us or someone close to us have contracted to a pandemic. Either we made it through it or we succumbed to it. So now we are all subject matter experts of how to deal a pandemic. So I'm sure all of us can, definitely put in an effort to, come out of some takeaway which can be implemented. I would probably only say that.
Absolutely. Yeah. For a layman like me, spelling mucormycosis itself says volumes about the kind of expertise we have been sort of gaining over
this post-pandemic. Not only the infrastructure, all of us, all of our bodies, we are only going to wait and watch what is the damage or what is the aftermath that all these various types of treatment protocols, remdesivirs and injections that we have put into our body, what all are the collateral damages they have done, and how much more cardiac centers we may need, how much more cancer centers we may need. So we can only keep our fingers crossed. Probably we may not need COVID facilities, we may need lots of other sorts of facilities. So but as a principle, if you have to make some principle changes, then it could be to join hands, exchange resources, whether exchange funds, exchange resources, exchange talent, exchange whatever we have, and make a more robust overall healthcare infrastructure, rather than a private or a public. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So I think I have taken a note of it, and I'll be surely circulating it to all our panelists and those who are going to join us in the next week. Also, I'll be posing a few questions based on these pointers. Quickly going to Mr. Dinesh Sharma. Dinesh ji, any parting remarks, any conclusive remarks you would want to add?
Yeah, the concluding remark at the end of this thing is that we must work, the government and the private, they must work in the coordination in this type of situation. Only then we can win. Otherwise, it's very difficult for only for government or only for a private to come out of this situation.
Thank you so much, sir. And now I go to Rajiv. Rajiv ji, what's your take before we part ways today?
As far as dealing with the pandemic, it is rightly said that private and government sector should deal it in joint hands. But however, as per the designing of the facilities is concerned, I must repeat once again that norms are for us. We are not for norms, but the norms are a binding thing that we should at least design this thing. Height restriction is the one very important thing which has been decided. I mean, NBC is a committee of many experts who have decided to fix all these things. Height, but beyond, other than the height, we should design a hospital not considering it as a government or a private facility. We should design it as an hospital which is going to serve our people, our countrymen, and we are using public money. We should be, go think beyond the standards, beyond the norms, to make it more functional, more operational, more friendly to users, more friendly to the medical staff. We only talk about patient. We need to talk about more about the staff working over there, more friendly and sustainable thing for the staff working over there. They are working over 24/7. We need to think more on that also. And I'm all the best to other people and these participants also, and the panelists to come with newer thing, newer ideas, newer thing which we can use to improvise our healthcare facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashok ji, just a line. Before we part ways today, what you felt, how was the session? Anything you would want us to take as a takeaway pointer?
Yeah, definitely. The session was really very good and interesting to interact with all distinguished members of the panel. Also, on a concluding note, I would just wish to say that, like pandemic has really taught us a number of things. And as you know, pandemic is one thing which has just come in a way that when it was, high time peak, the infrastructure was just deficient. and we had trouble in terms of catering to people in need. And that is one thing which has come out of this situation, that we should have facilities like infectious disease hospitals and wards and so on. That is one. Second, the facilities like isolation wards and isolation rooms or private rooms. So these are things which generally, become a very uh, important resource when we really look for. And therefore, and whatever it is, whether it's a pandemic or any other epidemic or any other problem, like in Delhi, you have had dengue, and some other areas will have some encephalitis, or some other areas we have some other problems. And these all, situations only lead towards one thing, that for critical care, we need a facility which is quite like ICU, or quite like, well-equipped facility. Like in this particular pandemic, phase 2 of COVID, we were just looking for our beds with oxygen. That was a major requirement. Of course, on top of that, ICU beds were also required for more critical patients. But then, largely, the oxygen outlet was all the more needed for 80%, 90% patients. So, for such things in future, like in government of Uttar Pradesh, CM has already kind of initiated a process of establishing 100-bed pediatric ICU in all districts, just to counter any such exigency in case it happens for the children, as is normally being predicted that it may come as a kind of a third wave or something. So we have to be prepared for such things, so that we don't have this kind of problem encountered at that stage. So it should be better prepared at early stage than at a later date. So that was all my.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now finally going to Dr. Kailash Sharma. Sir, your final word before we wrap up the session.
So, to listening to all the eminent architects, I could grasp so many things, and particularly Saha Saab, where all the innovative products of Prism Johnson, when he described about anti-static, anti-radiation, anti-this thing for hospitals, for pavements, for paths, for operation theaters, I think these are innovative products, and they will really prove very fruitful when the pandemic is over and people start utilizing these innovative products by their designs, and which are being approved by all the accredited bodies, by Department of Science and Technology and the other institute in Bhopal. I think these are research products, and people should be aware of all these things which are available in the market, not in the this thing that those who are making duplicate tiles in Bhuj and Kutch and all these things, which mimic Johnson tiles, but what are their functions? What are their research products? There is zero in that. Only tiles are there. But Johnson's contribution in this field is enormous, and I must congratulate the entire Johnson team for giving such innovative products, which will be useful for hotels, for pavements, for buildings, for hospitals, and everywhere, bathrooms and toilets and everything, anti-infection, anti-static, anti-radiation. So I must congratulate the entire Johnson team for such illustrated talk, and people will make aware that such things are available in the market, and they are real research driven products in the field of construction industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words, and appreciation means a lot. And obviously, the kind of discussion we have had today, it was thought-provoking to say the least. People from so diverse kind of backgrounds and expertise coming together and talking about a common topic. Obviously, a lot of takeaways are there. And things go back to what Rajiv mentioned in the beginning itself, that we are still in the middle of the pandemic. We don't know how far more we have to cover ground before we sort of see the end of it, or possibly we have started looking at the beginning of the end of this pandemic. So we need to keep learning, keep evolving, and most importantly, maintain the continuity of such dialogues like the one we had today. And I'm sure that all the panelists would agree with me on this, that the discussion, the debate, and a healthy dialogue between government sector, private sector, industry, academia, practitioners, it is the most important pillar for any particular civilization or any particular democracy to grow. And I'm happy that a small step in this regard we could take from the House of Johnson. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time, your patience, and all the insightful inputs which were put forth. I also must thank Mr. Saha for all the insights that he brought in and the efforts that he and his team has been putting in. A big thank you to our viewers who have been connected with us over Zoom as well as the Facebook live session, and have been posing some really interesting feedback and questions to our panelists. Thank you very much to all of you. And with this, I would conclude the session. Have a nice evening, ladies and gentlemen, and stay safe. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Harsh. Thanks so much. Thank you all panelists, and nice being with you all. It was really interactive and very good session.
Thanks a lot.